Today on Rise Up. For over 20 years, millions have turned to the secret and the law of attraction in hopes of transforming their lives. But has it truly changed the world for the better? The Riser sheds light on the real secret, one that has been hidden in the teachings of the prophets, messengers, and the family of Muhammad. Peace be upon them. This is not about visualizing riches or meditating your way to success. It's about becoming a vessel of divine mercy, generosity, and forgiveness. Discover why the key to transformation begins within, and how your actions directly shape how God responds to you. This is Rise Up.
Good morning, welcome to Rise Up. I'm Alia Halal.
Good morning, welcome to Rise Up, Irfan Alamgir.
So here we go again.
Here we are again.
Let's start.
How's it going, Alia?
Good. How's it going with you?
It's good. I can't wait to go because I'm really excited about the episode. I think it was a smash hit of an episode, and I really enjoyed it.
The lecture, right?
Yes, the Aba Al-Sadiq's lecture with Sister Tiffany.
My goodness, there was a lot to unpack in that one. We're excited to jump into that conversation today. And it's something that benefits everybody. Nobody would be not interested in this topic because it's something that has interested many people for a long time, and it's been spoken about before, but in a very different way. So let's keep that for later. I don't want to spoil anything just yet.
Yes.
We have some community posts to start with.
Yep, that's always a good way to launch into the...
It's a nice warm-up, right? It's like,
let's do it.
Yeah.
For a morning show. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Bring it up. Roll the clip.
There we go.
Español.
Spain.
We're in Spain, people. El Nuevo Papa. Where is the Nuevo Papa pictures? This is, the land of Spain. It's a great place. It's a place that's given refuge and asylum to oppressed and persecuted individuals, and we salute the country and any country that abides to these perennial human rights principles. God already chose a leader. Ain't that the truth? That's
the news of the year. Headline of the year.
Headline of the year. Oh, I love that.
Get around that.
Pose of Aba Al-Sadiq. It's
Download the Mahdi's Manifest.
It's already translated. It's available in Spanish for one and all. And there's a mosque. We're still in Spain. Spain has some very impressive mosques.
And some very impressive Ansar.
Oh yeah, even better Ansar.
Iran. Yeah, you see these handwritten notes a lot in Iran because that's the sad thing. You can't go to a print shop in Iran and say, hey, can you print these posters for me? Right. It's not going to work.
Yeah, Iran is a country that is under the cosh a lot, and it's really struggling to survive, and it's because it went astray from the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad and his family, who they claim to follow. And they have the Husseinias there, but they don't practice what they preach, and this is the issue with the country. But there are some brilliant individuals in that land, the land of Salman al-Farisi, and we are basically calling them to action.
Yes.
And they are acting, and they're acting very courageously.
Croatia.
Back to Croatia.
The Balkans region.
Yeah. Croatia is really competing with Andorra these days, right? In terms of its
Croatia had a head start, though. They were doing it before Andorra. Andorra came in, but Andorra is hitting quite strong.
Yep, let's.
I think we're gonna stop, but actually we just started. Labbaik Aba Al-Sadiq.
Yeah, God already chose an imam, a leader. This is the thing on the mosque. And look at the size of that place. But it's exactly as the Prophet Muhammad prophesied, isn't it? It's saying that the masjids in the times of the riser or the Mahdi will be opulent and large and glamorous. And this is exactly what it is. It's a work of, it's an architectural masterpiece in the middle of a Western country, but it is completely bereft of guidance. And this is what you will see in the Middle East and in the West. You'll see people pouring out their money to try and build mosques, but the mosques are being abused and misused because there is no true guide present within them, and there's no spirit of guidance. And this is what we're calling the people to. It's much more important that that money that is being poured out, and who knows what the maintenance and upkeep is. I would love to see these financial statistics for how much money is needed to not just build these places and to acquire the land, but to run these things. And could that money be put to better use? That's the question that we need to ask. And I think the answer will startle a lot of people, because there are people who are really, really struggling. Even in the West, the inequality has reached levels where people are living below the poverty line here, even in this country, in the UK, Muslims as well as non-Muslims. And that money could be used for much more appropriate uses.
Yeah, it's quite strange to see these giant places that have been built so beautifully.
Domes with like calligraphy.
Exactly.
And
Especially if you look at places like in Iran, in Mashhad and Qom, if you go to Iraq and you go to Najaf, you go to Karbala, and you see these places that have been basically designed in this most beautiful fashion for the sake of the 12 Imams. And they're basically these shrines, these mausoleums that are for different Imams. In Mashhad, you'll find Imam Ali Riza, and it'll be his grave site, and around it is this incredible shrine that they have built. And the same thing in Karbala for Imam Hussein, of course. And there is this idea that it's a good idea to do that because they're the Imams, this is what we should do for them. But at the same time, is that actually what they had wanted, and is this what they asked us to do? Is this what mankind is benefiting from? And not knowing the Imam of the current time, not knowing the Imam who is living, and going to these Imams who have passed and giving them this kind of reverence, and basically they have literal gold encrusted domes at the top of their shrines. I mean, this is a lot of, as you said, a lot of upkeep, a lot of work. And it's a bit strange. It's exactly what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, which is that their places of worship will be so opulent and so glamorous, but inside there will be no guidance at all to be found. That is such a tragedy. It's very ironic.
Yes, and Jesus Christ, Isa ibn Maryam, if you know, well, we have his example.
Yes.
He went to the temple and he saw what was happening and being commodified for business and sale, and the people who are supposed to be coming there to worship God and to solve the problems of the community at the time, he didn't see that at all, and he started flipping tables, and he went on a rampage, really, if you read the accounts in the Gospels. And if Imam Mehdi was there right now in Qom or in Najaf, he would do exactly the same. And he would be absolutely right to do so, because he is the owner of the vineyard.
Exactly. It's his lineage, it's his authority, it's his grandfathers, and the way that people are perceiving religion today, it's not the way it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Especially in the mainstream, and in fact in the mainstream. I think that's the issue. People see that what's happening in the society must be correct because everyone's doing it, let's go along with it. But on Rise Up, we talk a lot about questioning everything. And our last episode, we talked about questioning certain beliefs and ideas they seem to be correct because everyone is believing them, but maybe they're not. Maybe you've been raised with something that perhaps isn't aligning with the truth. And it takes courage to face that and say to yourself, let me really put my belief to the test. Let me see if it actually does hold water or not. And a lot of the time you might find that it doesn't. So this is why we've got our platforms, because we want to have those conversations with people where they're able to have that, to make that journey with us so we can navigate it together. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy, and but in some ways the problem is right there in front of our eyes. And for those people who attend these mosques on a regular basis or routinely, they will see that there is absolutely no conversation about the problems within that community, let alone the society at large or on a national or international scale. They don't care about the problems of the people on the ground. They're sharing narrations, they're reciting the Quran in the melodious tunes and voices, but they are not solving the issues on the ground. This is the main issue with the mosques. They were supposed to be like community centers where people come together and they say, look, we have a problem that there is a lot of drugs. Our kids are taking drugs and they're causing lots of problems. They are having premarital relations, and what do we do about this? Well, maybe we should stop making them getting married such a difficult proposition, like climbing Mount Everest, or the kid is self-harming, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're struggling in school, they're getting bullied. Why aren't these issues being tackled in these places of worship? That's what they were made for. They weren't just made for people to come in, do some spiritual gymnastics and then go away and continue on with their lives. This is not the purpose or point of a masjid. And this is something that we have to highlight, because the Prophet Muhammad spoke about this, and he said this is a sign of the end times, that everybody's obsessed with building mosques and collecting money to build mosques, but nobody is solving societal issues. And this is where Aba Sadiq stands alone.
And this is where he's needed, because you cannot have a mosque or a masjid without an imam. And the imam of the time is Aba Sadiq. And while he is standing there and not being supported by certain groups, or while people might say to themselves, we will reject him and even attack his call, there will not be much blessing in what they're trying to accomplish, unfortunately, because you cannot do that. You cannot basically take the head of the body, which is the imam of the time, and remove that head and expect the body to function correctly. It cannot happen, and it does not work. The ship will not run without a captain. It doesn't work like that. And we've spoken quite often here about how that's needed and how the imam of the time is needed. And the fact that he is that imam of the time, that there is so much to speak about on that subject.
Yeah, and Aba Sadiq spoke about, speaking of imams and mosques, and Aba Sadiq did say that, and again, you can maybe enlighten us a bit more about this, but he mentioned in one of his talks about how Sulaiman alayhi salam, King Solomon, in his time, he had the ability to communicate and command even the spirits of the jinn, the unseen forces that were part of his kingdom. And some of them were not good. They were really, really bad guys, and he actually cast them away into the sea, or he'd lock them up. But Aba Sadiq said that those evil spirits have returned in this time, and they've specifically chosen to occupy the leadership within the mosques and the religious institutions.
That is very strange. I remember when that episode came out, and there was a certain name he took as well, which was actually, it wasn't audible for people. It was kept as some information that perhaps shouldn't be in the public just as
But I think he also referenced a narration that stated that in the time...
Yes,
so there are.
So it's very fascinating. I mean, it can be offensive to people if you say that. They say, how can you say that? But the fact is, as you said, there are narrations backing it. You know, we have narrations that state that these positions and these roles of being scholars, religious scholars, who are in positions of power in society, these are very impactful roles. I mean, if you are a religious scholar in the society, whether it's in Islam or Christianity or any other religion really, you have a big responsibility, and you've got something on your shoulders that you have to carry now. And I think that that's known. Like what comes with it is known. And unfortunately, if someone, a wolf in sheep's clothing really, comes in and says, let me take that role, and perhaps they're not such good people, then what will happen to the society? It will not flourish at all, because there are people now sitting at the pulpits, on the podiums, they're saying, let's talk about religion, let's talk about God, and whatever you're hearing, I mean, it may or may not be true if you completely rely on these fallible people.
And
it's very startling.
It is a striking thing, but it's something we were told to expect. Now, this is where this platform becomes so important, because we're not just saying things out of our own imaginations or fantasies. This is something that the Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet Muhammad and his family, spoke about and warned us to be very mindful of, that the places of worship will be the ones that are actually the furthest away from guidance. And I think this ruffles a lot of feathers. But for people who have experienced it firsthand, they will agree with us, and they therefore decide to keep their faith private and to worship at home, because they also have had the same experience of the mosques and temples and churches that they've been members of, and some of them have actually endured extreme levels of abuse in these places, which has been well publicized in the press. And this is therefore something that is experientially verifiable. People have gone through this, and they have decided, some of them, unfortunately, to leave religion altogether, which is another extreme reaction. But then there is extreme abuse at play, and there are so many headlines coming out on a regular basis which highlight this fact. And the reason for it is simply because those people who are in positions of leadership within the religious institutions have decided not to practice what they preach. They've decided to reject the owner of the vineyard when he sends his son, as we discussed in the Gospels. That amazing story that Aba Al-Sadiq also spoke about in one of his recent talks is such a pivotal part of that story, because you have in the Bible the parable of the tenants.
Yes.
And you have in the Quran the mentioning of a story that is very similar in its principle and teaching, which is in Surah Yasin. And the people are unable to recognize God's true vicegerent because, to a large extent, those people who are supposed to educate us on the narrations of the prophets and the messengers have been corrupted. And they are, in fact, not just corrupted, they are the returned souls of some of the most evil and demonic entities to have lived on this planet. And this is something that the riser of the family of Muhammad and his predecessor, Imam Ahmad al-Hassan, the first Mahdi, have both revealed on a number of occasions.
I mean, wouldn't it make a lot of sense that that would be the role that these evil spirits would want to occupy? Wouldn't they want to misguide people? Isn't that exactly what Iblis or Satan had promised God? He said, I will sit on the straight path and I will misguide whoever tries to reach you. How is he going to misguide them? He's not misguiding them in places where people are already misguided or not leaning towards God. He's going to try to go to places where people are looking for God or speaking about him or taking his name. And then he'll wear the garb of, and his people, his minions, will wear the garb of those religious scholars and say, trust us, we know what we're talking about, and don't think for yourselves. And actually don't read the books that you're told to read. We'll tell you what to read.
Yes.
Don't even read, we'll read for you. And we'll tell you what to think. And then you just do what we tell you and everything will be fine. And then you turn around and you realize that the whole society is actually on fire. And you don't know why that's the case. And it's because some people who shouldn't have power have power.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
The Pharisees that called for the crucifixion of Christ have reincarnated, calling for the crucifixion of the Mahdi, and specifically the Qa'im, because they see him as the greatest existential threat to their stronghold over the religious kind of institutions. And this is something, again, that the people have to know and recognize. And this is one of the crucial signs that eventually lead to a lot of people to guidance. As soon as people wake up to the fact that the person who is sitting on the pulpit is actually a non-working scholar, and he is rejecting God's vicegerent, as the Pharisees rejected Jesus Christ, they will see exactly where the truth lies. And this is a key indicator of where the truth is. So for those people who have eyes to see with and minds to contemplate with, they will reach this realization soon if they just educate themselves in these narrations pertaining to the scholars of the end times.
Yeah, and even just if they use a little bit of logic and common sense, like you said, so many people have been impacted negatively by these people, and it's important to keep our eyes open. I'm excited to jump into the lecture, the coming lecture now, which is, by the way, in full. You can watch it on the Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel. Today we're going to be taking different segments out of it and talking about what Aba Al-Sadiq teaches in it. It's extremely exciting. It's so beautiful. It's so wholesome. You would think that you would think that the topic has to do with being selfish and getting what you want, but it's actually the total opposite of that, and it's so beautiful. I can't wait to discuss this. Let's go ahead and roll the first clip, and then we'll talk about it.
So there was a time period in which there was a pop culture phenomenon called The Secret. And it was based upon this book that was titled The Secret, that was written by certain individuals that were promoting the law of attraction as being the ultimate solution to all problems in life. And they sought to interview and also make DVDs and use the testimonials of rich and successful people to state that, yes, this is our secret. This is how we became rich and successful, through utilizing the law of attraction, an ancient law that was hidden within Gnostic sources and ancient texts and scriptures, and only the rich knew it. And they kept it as a hidden secret to themselves. But now the authors of the book are making it available for everybody in order that mankind, as a whole succeeds. All right, they were kind of breaking the monopoly on the secret and making it accessible to anybody and everybody.
Yes.
And millions and millions of copies of this book was sold. It was translated into tons of different languages. The DVDs were spread all over the globe. And many people began to buy into this notion that our reality is in our hands and that we can create essentially a better reality for our own selves simply by meditating or thinking or envisioning or drawing on a vision board what it is that we are hoping to accomplish.
Yes.
And I think it's been, 20 years or so since the book's released. So it's been a long time, and we still find that the world is in exactly the same place that it was. Actually, it's probably in a worse place. So one can kind of judge now, on the success of the book and see whether or not it was really true or not true based on the results that we have today. And I think that it's pretty safe to say that although it is an attractive idea, right, and it draws upon certain principles of science and physics that might be true, but the fact remains that the implementation of this theoretical knowledge did not result in the success that it promised initially.
Yes, I guess that we can observe that for sure. I mean, I kind of blew my mind. It's been actually about 20 years, now that you mention it. And certainly, if we look at the world as a whole, the world, it has not solved the world's problems, for sure.
No, it hasn't solved the world's problems. The rich kept getting richer. The poor kept getting poorer. The middle class is disappearing. And it seems like the world is actually in a darker place than it was. There are more wars, there's more deaths, there's more chaos, there's more diseases. And so one can only attribute this to one of two things. Either we had millions of maniacal people that were envisioning very bad futures for the world, and therefore they manifested it, or the secret simply doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so what I would like to discuss with you today, Tiffany, is the true secret. What I have found in the teachings of the prophets and the messengers and the vicegerents, the secret to true success and the secret to true richness and fulfillment and happiness.
Okay.
I had spent a long time, many years, reading into the words of the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam and trying to get my hands on every single manuscript that I could find in order to read their hadiths. I had read some narrations from the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam that basically stated that if a day goes by in which you do not learn something new, then that should be counted or seen as a day that has been totally wasted. There was no meaning in life during that day. And so every day that we're alive, we have to pursue knowledge, knowledge that can obviously improve the state of the world or improve ourselves. And from that point, I went forward trying to learn something new every day. And I know that the emphasis with Muhammad and the family of Muhammad of obtaining knowledge was so great that there are many narrations to the effect of that even if not, that we have to pursue knowledge even if it were in China. And obviously the distance between Arabia and where the Prophet and his companions were at the dawn of Islam and China, there's a great distance between them, especially when you're putting into consideration the technology of the age. And obviously it would be extremely difficult to pursue knowledge in China for an Arabian or a person of Arab descent that lived 1400 1,500 years ago. And so we are supposed to overcome all difficulties when it comes to knowledge. We should travel and be willing to die in the pursuit of knowledge. And that's exactly what I did. And I found that the words of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad echoed and confirmed all of the words of the previous prophets and messengers that were sent, and confirmed by the Gospels and by obviously the Torah and prophets and messengers of different cultures as well. And I found that all of them had this kind of common theme between them. And that is that there is this secret to obtaining success, a secret to obtaining whatever it is that you want to obtain. So whatever it is that you would want to obtain, the secret is is applicable to whatever it is that you are pursuing. If you are pursuing richness, the secret applies. If you're pursuing mercy, the secret applies. If you're pursuing love, the secret applies. And the secret was really quite simple, and that is that you should be however it is that you want God to be with you. So you become like a mirror first of that which you want reflected onto you.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, and it talks about did you read The Secret when it came out? Were you aware of it?
Yes, I read it and I watched the documentary.
It was a cultural phenomenon, right?
It was a big deal.
You had Oprah talking about it, and it was on every book club list. And
everyone knew about it, and if you didn't know about it, then you were missing out on something really big, which is the big secret, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, this book was, like everybody was reading it. It was something that it revived the self-help kind of genre in reading. It speaks about this idea that you can attract into your life that which you are putting your attention on through visualization, through affirmation, through different methods of keeping things in your mind. And it got to the point where it's talking about not just attracting vast quantities of wealth, but also, I remember it talked about how you can manifest a parking space appear if you are expecting it and visualizing it. It was something that everybody was talking about, and the idea that you become like a magnet, you pull in things that you focus on through visualization. And we know, and we've spoken about visualization before when we did the series with Hamid Reza, Mind Science, where visualizing, for example, you are running a 100-meter dash, you are thinking about which muscles you're using, and the better you are at visualizing, the more you'd practice it. After a while, after a few months of doing it, you can actually get the heart rate going, the same muscles that are involved in the sprint get going, and you can actually have a mental workout through visualizing.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it is.
Brain is crazy, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And they even did studies where people were sort of throwing in the basketball into the hoop, and then they were visualizing doing it before and after. These were, I think they weren't professionals, they were semi-pros or amateurs or something, but they then visualized, and after 6 weeks they repeated it after they were visualizing throwing it, and their scores improved drastically. So there is definitely something to it. And the human imagination, the ability to visualize a certain outcome, has been proven to give success in certain manual tasks or physical things that we do with our hands. But when it came to attracting wealth and influence and power and the different things people want, I guess, in the material world, it takes a slightly different turn, and it becomes about the I. And
that's the thing, right? So people do need wealth, they do need resources, they do need to be comfortable. This is something that all human beings would love to have, right? But how do you do it? What is the right way to do it? And the secret, is it a selfish secret or is it a selfless secret? And I think that that's something that Abu Sadiq made a very great point about. He said that it came out 20 years ago. So many people were, millions of people were going crazy about it. It was a worldwide phenomenon, by the way. It was everywhere. And the fact is, you didn't see like everyone becoming suddenly very wealthy, right? It's not like everyone was applying it and now everything is better. And Abu Sadiq made a great point. He said, in fact, you could argue that it's worse. People are suffering more now. Things are going downhill, actually. So what happened? Why didn't it work? And the fact is that it won't work unless certain elements are part of it. And this is what Abu Sadiq is bringing forward. He is being extremely generous, and he's giving us the real secret. The real secret that is something that can lead to a person having a fulfilling life, and something that is a very holy way of living, actually, the way that we're meant to live, and something that kind of ties in with everything that we have been learning through this show and through the lectures of Abu Sadiq, where he talks about, for example, the Hadith al-Qudsi, where God says, I want and you want. And the end result of that hadith is that God will give you what you want. But there's a way to go about it. There's a whole protocol. There's like a hero's journey you have to undergo first, and then something very special happens. But it's not just a matter of, and this is what I think we need to emphasize here, you can't just sit there and make a vision board and keep looking at that amazing car you want and think about it forever and then you get the car. The universe isn't designed like that. There's something more to it.
Yeah, see, this marrying of visualization with fulfilling your own desires, this is where
it's problematic.
It went off the radar.
Because of the law of attraction and the idea that when you think about something or you see something or you feel something for a long time, it can manifest in your environment. Sure, this can happen, but you can't now kind of tweak the game and say, I'm going to use that to now get loads of money or an amazing mansion or...
You see, that was the marketing strategy, exactly what you said. You sit there, okay, I want a red Ferrari. I'm going to put a big picture of a red Ferrari right in front of my bedroom so that every moment I wake up before I sleep, red Ferrari, red Ferrari. But you can do that till kingdom come. You will not get it unless you get off your behind and you start to work for it or do something or add value to somebody else in order to receive the money to acquire this car. Exactly. Yes, it will probably build a certain desire for this object. But you don't need a picture or a vision board.
You already know
if I really want something, I'm going to take the actions to get what I want.
Exactly.
And this is where I think they marketed it really well. And it's a lazy man's option, isn't it? Just to say, okay, think about what you want. Visualization is great, for example, if you are a technical person, if you're an engineer, you're a football player who wants to take penalty kicks, it'll help you in that regard. If you're a surgeon, they all do it. They visualize exactly, okay, I'm going to go. Alia, your father's a surgeon, right? Yes. So he would do, okay, I'm going to perform an appendectomy. Now I'm going to visualize, I'm going to cut here like this, and I'm going to use this. The pilots do it, all professionals do it when there's manual tasks involved. But to use it to manifest or attract something to you is an interesting way of doing it. And this is where Abu Sadiq teaches us, like you said, the true secret.
Exactly. There's something kind of flawed in that idea. And if it was true, then everyone would be so happy. I could sit here right now and think to myself, I don't know, I want a chocolate cake to appear on the table and keep thinking about it and thinking about it. But it's a
passive process.
It's very passive, and also it's very strange that God would create the universe and say, now people have to do this in order to get what they want. It kind of defies the divine system that God ordained in the first place. But now that's what's so interesting about what Basai brings up. God does want us to be happy. He does want us to have what we want. He wants us to get close to Him. He wants us to know Him. He created paradise as the home for mankind. That was our natural habitat for human beings. It was Eden. So for us to be out of Eden is actually something very traumatizing for the human being. It's not meant to be that way. We're meant to be in Eden. We're meant to be happy. And what is Eden? It's a place where you have what you want. But it came with a caveat. What took us out of there? There's this whole idea that, okay, if I'm selfish, I'll get what I want, and it's ingrained in society. But what if, and exactly what Abu Sadiq says in the end of that segment, what if it's more than that? What if it's about being a reflection of God? What if it's about actually, hey, if I want something for myself, I have to give it to another. And that's what a true paradise is, a place where people are making each other happy, and therefore they are always happy. And that's what Adam didn't do. He didn't apply that. He didn't go along with the understanding that when God is giving me what I want, now I must obey His command. There's a give and a take. And that's the law of attraction in reality that we're supposed to be applying in our lives. And you see the amazement on Tiffany's face when Abu Sadiq kind of, gives it away and says, you have to be a reflection of God and do for someone else what it is that you want done for you. It's that karmic golden rule. And she goes, wait a second. Because everything ties in together so beautifully at that moment in the lecture when he says that.
Yeah, it was a penny drop moment.
Yeah, it was the eureka moment. And he continues and he elaborates on it. I don't want to go too deep into that before Abu Sadiq does, so let's let him explain a bit further and then we'll come back to it.
If you want to be rich then, and you recognized that God is the one who is the rich, Al-Ghani, right, is one of His names, and you wanted to be ghaniyu billah, you wanted to be rich through God or by God, then you had to reflect His actions that you hope to obtain for yourself with others.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. That's very interesting.
So if you want that your prayers be accepted and you're constantly asking God to give you what you want in life, then you also had to be the fulfiller of prayers for other creatures.
Yes.
And once you aligned yourself and you became that for other creatures, God would be that for you.
Wow.
In other words, it is a way of applying practically the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when he says that God does not change what is with a people until they change what is with their own selves. And so I took this idea, I took this notion, and I decided to experiment with it. And I decided to apply it. And I made an oath and a covenant with God. I said to God, God, no matter who it is, no matter what it is that they are asking for, I promise you that I will fulfill their request. Okay?
Okay.
So long as I am capable of it. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously does not burden a soul with that which it cannot bear, meaning you're not obliged to do something if you don't have the resources or the ability to do so. But so long as you have the resources and the ability to do so, I promised that I would do so. And I would see it as an obligation upon myself to do so. And I would see that the person who is requesting from me something to be a vessel whereby God is testing me or God is giving me an opportunity to do something. And I also had found many narrations from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that basically confirmed this idea. And it said that there's one narration that said that we should never be upset when somebody asks us for something, because actually this is a blessing in disguise.
Okay.
And that if we don't fulfill the request of the person who asks, or we get upset about that, or we shun that, then God would move that blessing towards someone else. We also had, and I paid very close attention to this kind of theme that was woven into the traditions and into the biblical texts and stories of the prophets and the messengers, of God basically testing prophets and messengers. And this is also in the narrations. God would test the prophets and messengers by basically making them have a taste of their own medicine, or having them pass judgment on their own selves.
Yeah.
And so there were narrations in Islam of particular prophets that would constantly ask for mercy from God for their people. And God would be wanting to, or see fit, that he punish these people. And the prophet would object to God's wisdom. And so God would revert to testing them with a very simple test. And he would send to them an individual who would usually be an angel that would be disguised as a human being. And the angel would pose a particular problem to him. And then once the prophet judged, God would essentially parallel or mirror that judgment on a larger scale with the people. And the prophet would have no room to object, because God is only now applying the very punishment that the prophet himself had decreed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. It makes sense. So it requires a person to sort of acknowledge and be aware of God's justice system. God has this, great justice system of karma, where you reap what you sow. And so the secret seems to be really tied to that concept.
Exactly. And we see an example of this actually in the Torah, in the story of David And there was a particular incident where there was a man with 99 sheep, right?
Yeah.
And his neighbor had 1 sheep. Do you know this story?
Yeah. So the prophet Nathan, he came to David and he asked him to judge in this matter. So there was a man who had 99 sheep and a man who had 1 sheep, and the man who had 99 wanted to take the one from the other man. And David was very appalled at this, and he thought it was so terrible. But the wisdom behind this parable is that David had actually done the same thing with Bathsheba. He had taken the only wife of his neighbor, Uriah. So he was actually judging upon his own self in this story.
Exactly. So what do we draw from this? We draw from this that God punishes people based on and deals with people exactly how they are. How they are is how God deals with them. And this is perhaps one of the meanings behind the narration of know yourself and you shall know your Lord. And one of the meanings behind the narration that says, it's a hadith Qudsi in which God says, I am how my servant perceives me to be. Okay? So how the individual is how God is going to be with him, because God is just. And so he uses the same scales that the individual uses for others. So if you want to change the destiny and the scales and the position and the situation that you're in, you're going to have to backtrack and change first what is with your own self in order that you change everything else that is around you, right?
Wow. So the solution is within your own self.
The solution is within yourself. And we have a narration that says that Imam Ali alayhi salam said that you think that you are a small germ, but yet enfolded within you is the greater cosmos, okay? And that is also one of the phases of interpretation of this particular narration.
It's interesting that the secret is kind of embedded into some of these, fan favorite narrations that exist. So one of them that Abu Sa'id quoted was, "Know yourself and you shall know your Lord." I think that one is a very incredible narration. A lot of people love that one.
Yeah.
And the other one that he quoted right at the end, that you see yourself as this small entity, but within you is hidden the entire cosmos or the entire universe.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And my favorite one, which is sandwiched in between them.
What was that one?
The beef in the burger, if you will, is God is as you perceive
Oh,
him.
wow. That one, by the way.
That is
It's so esoteric. It's so fascinating. And I remember it took me months. Like it was always on my mind. Like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does it mean? Like, how can... There's so much power in that statement, if you think about it. Because now God is saying, I'll be anything you want if you, see me in that way. If you truly trust me in that way. That's something very, very heavy and something to really ponder over. These are some pretty intense narrations that Abu Sadiq has kind of laid down as the foundation or the fabric, really, of the secret. This is how it works. That karmic law, the golden rule, the way that we are is what we receive, that which we reap, we sow. This is the whole point of the secret, and it's about that reflection, as Abu Sadiq had said before, being a reflection of the divine. And also when he brings up the idea that the prophets and messengers, God would test them and see how they deal with their people. And the way that they would deal with their people is how God would deal with them. So it's kind of like this pact, isn't it? It's like a contract, like it's a give and take, and it's very equal. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, and it's also a very powerful self-development tool because you have to start now from a place where you are reading the 99 names or the different attributes of God, his characteristics such as the rich, Al-Ghani, such as the generous, Al-Karim, and you are focusing on what it means to be this. And then you see that you are in a position where you have something and somebody requests it from you, but you choose in that moment not to give it because you feel that there is a lack or that you really want this right now. But in that moment, if you choose to imagine God as generous and you think, well, I wish to become as much like God as possible, then you override that feeling that the body has, that it's mine, it's my precious. And the golem comes to life, then we have a problem. And this is something that is then later you have to reflect on it, right? So if you wish to have the best possible image of God, which is developed through knowing the image of God in creation, which is the Caliph of God, then you must exercise restraint over the golem. You must yank that chain back and do something that it does not want to do, which is to give something that it feels an attachment to. And you keep doing this enough, and then you feel that freedom that comes from knowing who God is, and you become a channel of His generosity, right? So if you are contemplating on becoming rich, like Aba Al-Sadiq gave that example, then you have to practice generosity. And then what happens is, if you are generous one time and another time and another time, then your understanding or insight of that name Al-Karim also expands. And as that expands, it's like a pipe that its diameter gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you become, like I said, a channel for the name Al-Karim. And we don't hold on to anything. It's like you are a vessel that allows generosity to flow through it. So there's no attachment to anything, but the right hand gives and the left hand doesn't know. It's that detached aspect of God that you have within yourself.
Sincere generosity.
Sincere generosity.
Like a real generosity. And it's not a generosity that belongs to us. That's what's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Any divine attribute or any good attribute that we're trying to exhibit or to show or practice, this goodness isn't our own goodness. It's always divine. It's always something that's sourcing back to God. So if you feel it, if you know it, if you're experiencing it and you're practicing it, if you're saying to yourself, I want to be generous today, then you're reflecting God's generosity. You're allowing God's generous light to flow through you, because you're allowing that generosity to flow through you, because now you've decided to be a channel for it. And that is something very, very incredible to experience, because now you're detaching bit by bit from that inner golem that exists and becoming something much greater. And that's when God loves His servant and gives him more and says, I want to give you more opportunities. And when someone is generous, God will provide them with more so they can be more generous. That's the key. That's the secret. That's the secret language that, to be honest with you, He made it very clear in these narrations. He said it so openly. God was very direct. He's like, do this and I'll do this for you, you know. But people they still stumble and they bump into the walls quite often without realizing what God is saying. And that's why we have Aba Al-Sadiq to break it down for us and explain it to us.
Yeah, it's a complete changing and rewriting of the narrative. So next time, if somebody, like you said, that famous narration, Hadith al-Qudsi, I want and you want, which is trying to align your wants and desires with God. But if I want to, again, I'll give the example, because this is in the secret what most people want. They want money and wealth and power, right? Yeah. So if I wanted wealth, now this is something that I hold on to, let's say, some currency, some paper money, right? Which of course has no intrinsic value in and of itself. But let's say I imagine and visualize lots of stacks of cash on this table right here, and this. Yeah. I'm going to take it all for myself. Okay. Now I want to be rich, right? So Aba Al-Sadiq is saying, no, it's not about wanting or desiring the object. It's actually about becoming generous with others, giving what you have to others, whether it's money or whatever resource you have at your disposal in that particular time. And you ask, if you're a religious person and you don't want to follow the secret because you think it's something else, and you're like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please make me rich, make me so wealthy and so rich. I promise I will give it. I will build mosques for you, which is a red flag. But
problematic.
Yeah, you're praying, and you're making this kind of covenant, like Aba Al-Sadiq said, he made a covenant with God that but you're desiring money and you want to become rich. This is not the right approach, even spiritually speaking. Because if you want to be rich, then what God will do is He'll put you in a situation, in a scenario where you will have to exhibit that which you want. So you will have to give money to, for example, a friend who is in dire straits and in financial hardship, and you give him
open-handedly, without any restraint, and say, I'm happy to give, and that's the thing. If you're true, so that's why this law, or this, basically, it's a law of the universe. This is why it is so fascinating and so ingenious, because if there is a shred of selfishness in the intention, it won't work. It just won't. You cannot be a selfish person and be blessed like that. We're not saying that everyone who has wealth and who is blessed is always selfless and is always wonderful. No. We're saying that if you're talking about a secret or a way to manifest or a law of attraction, then it's not about saying to yourself, I'm going to make a vision board. It's about what you're giving to the world. And it's also, what's necessary to understand in this is that, just as you had said earlier, it's a very beautiful self-development tool, because it's about discovering God. It's about understanding His attributes. And it's about realizing that there's a very living relationship that we have with the Almighty. So the way that we behave, or the decisions we make, or the reasons that we make those decisions, all of these become something that you have to put under scrutiny and think to yourself, why? Why am I wanting this? Why am I doing this? When God says, know yourself and you shall know your Lord, that's something to really ponder over. Who am I? What is myself? You have to start looking into yourself and realizing why it is that you are the way you are, and why you want what you do want. How selfless are you and how selfish are you? And this is the question that we all must ask ourselves and see where it is that we stand. And when you kind of hack that law and you realize, okay, this is how it works, it's like learning how to drive a car, isn't it?
Yeah.
Once you kind of figure it out, you see that things flow. And you have this relationship now with God, where you're having a conversation with Him, where you can express a desire or a wish, and He will show you something, and then you will work alongside that sign that He has sent to you, and you will trust Him, and He's guiding you into how to receive what it is that you want. And that guidance has to do with other people and making sure they are okay. So it is a real thing, and in that process you become so close to Him, and you become that companion. He becomes your companion on this very remarkable journey towards discovery of the Imam of the time, really. That's where it ends, I think.
Yeah. So
towards Aba Sadiq.
Towards Aba Sadiq. It's the epitome of the divine attributes. If you want to learn all the divine attributes, and they're all interconnected in some way, aren't they? It's not just, it's like generosity is linked with compassion, because you have to have empathy for another's suffering in order to be generous. And to get this holistic understanding of the names and attributes of God, there is nothing better than the door to God, which is the Imam of the time, the divine representative of God, which is what our religion is based on. Hence the slogan, religion is a man.
Exactly.
And this is where Aba Sadiq becomes absolutely crucial and pivotal in the spiritual journey, in the hero's journey. That if you hold on to the hand of the Qa'im or the riser of the family of Muhammad, the Imam of the time, then he will take you around that hero's journey, that circle of all those difficult stages of training and purification, until you begin to become like God as well.
Yeah. That's the goal. And let's see how Abba Sadiq continues the lecture and
Let's do it.
what he goes to next.
Going back to the story, I decided that I was going to take these wisdoms and apply it in my actual life. And so I would walk on the streets of Egypt, and I might have in my pocket, say, 50 Egyptian pounds. And I would encounter a beggar on the street. If the beggar asked for money, I would ensure that I paid the beggar and gave the beggar a portion, or perhaps all of that which I had. It would be dependent upon the situation. If I was walking and I had to go to a particular destination and I absolutely needed the money that was with me, then I would give everything else above the need to the individual that had asked me. Or perhaps I would assess the situation. And if I found that the person asking me was in greater need, then I would not hesitate to give everything that I had. Essentially, I would be conscious of the fact that this person asking could be an angel, and I could be in a test at the very moment with God, and that God, based on this interaction between me and the individual, will deal with me in the same way. And what I found to be true is that after going forth and doing these things, everything that I would ask for would be fulfilled for me. if I asked God for something, He would answer me.
Okay.
It would be accepted.
Yeah.
And I would expect that it would be accepted as well. And God was always more generous with me. It almost became like this challenge or this game that was being played, right? And obviously God is above all games and God is above all descriptions and characteristics, but in order to allow the listeners to, or the viewers to understand what it is that I'm saying, it was almost as if God was saying to me, you are not going to be more generous than me. I am the most generous. Don't think that because you did that, that now I will be stingy with you. On the contrary, just as you are, I will be that, and even tenfold.
Okay. Wow.
Okay?
Okay.
And so I found that a secret all of a sudden was unlocked.
Yes.
And all of my needs were fulfilled. And it got to the point, Tiffany, I swear to you, by Allah, Allazi la ilaha illa huwa, that I tell you the truth and the honest truth. It got to the point where if I would even imagine in my head or have a craving for whatever it may be, a chocolate, a donut, anything like this, it would automatically manifest itself without me even asking God for it. Wow. Just by wishing for it or craving it or having a desire for it, I would be shocked to find somebody walking through the room at that very moment or knocking at the door and saying, hey, would you like to have a chocolate, or I got you this donut, or whatever it is that I had wanted at the time.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So it just goes to show how powerful it is when you allow yourself to become like a vessel for God's generosity, then you find God's generosity showering down upon you as well, even more so.
Absolutely. And so we have shared today with our viewers a practical way that they can actually go out and they can test in the real world. And the effects that this will have on the world are actually more powerful than any effects that the so-called secret that they had written 20 years ago would have, because there's no positive effects for the world if a person just meditates and wants and envisions that riches come to them versus them proactively going out in the world and playing the role of God, right, being a vessel for God, being a pipeline whereby God's divine sustenance can flow to creation.
Yeah.
And you know what's more incredible is that there was this movie that also came out over 20 years ago. It was called Pay It Forward.
Yeah.
And I found also that the more that I would interact with the people that are around me in this way in which I would fulfill their needs without me bragging about it or talking about it. If you brag about it, all the blessings go away. So you never feel good about it. You never think to yourself, oh, I've done a great thing today, because you actually didn't do nothing. And that's another point that we'll get to maybe in a future episode. You have to just do it sincerely for the sake of God and consider that you're doing nothing, but God is the one who is doing all things. But once I began to do this with the people that were around me, I saw that they began to connect and see, wow, this man is blessed. This man has his needs fulfilled. This man God is using to fulfill other people's needs. And they made the connection. And they said, we think that because he's such a generous man and he does all of this goodness, God bless him, and he's always helping us, that God's always helping them. Yeah. And so they wanted to do the exact same thing, and they wanted to emulate, right? Yeah. And so I found that these people that I were helping, all of a sudden, they became encouraged to do the exact same thing through observation. Yeah. right? Yeah. Rather than being told as if they were being preached to from a pulpit or something like this, they now had a living example that they could imitate and emulate and see for themselves the results. And in fact, they did see for themselves the exact same results that I saw, and they became also blessed in their lives. And to this very day, people write me or they talk to me about what it is that how this secret had affected their life, even though at the time and before this episode I never really referred to it as the secret, but we do so in this episode for the sake of making the point that we would like to make.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is, an incredible piece of knowledge that empowers people with a lot of, ability to enact change in their own selves. And the way you're describing how people had witnessed the blessing, where you were a vessel for God's, generosity and other attributes for other people, then people saw that blessing and they wanted to be like you and they wanted to emulate that. This is a perfect description of the early community of believers, that you had around you. And this is something that I myself observed and was really affected by, because I never saw people like that who were embodying the attributes of God and his love and his generosity and his kindness.
But we had examples of that in the Bible, didn't we?
Yes, exactly. It reminded me as a former Christian of the early community of Christians who were living with Jesus. So I made that connection and I saw that parallel, and it all started with you.
God bless you, Tiffany.
Wow. Quite a lot of revelations in this episode, and I think it's just a matter of perspective. How is it that we're looking at this world? Are we being selfish or are we being selfless? And Aba Sadiq has always been so selfless. This isn't even about because he's the Imam, he has these attributes. As an individual in Egypt, he was always someone who really practiced what he was learning and reading. He didn't just read it, he put it into practice.
And he inspired others to follow suit.
And that's the thing, because his work was so sincere, other people said, I want to try what he's doing.
And because other people could see him bearing fruit.
Yeah.
They were like, give me a cluster of those grapes.
Yeah, they liked what they were seeing in the sense that he really truly exhibited those divine qualities and people wanted to be like that.
Yeah.
And it is true that, I have to say, what Tiffany said is absolutely, spot on. She's saying that the early community that started with him, he spoke of these values of being generous, of being compassionate, being forgiving, wanting for others what you want for yourself. And people are putting it into practice. And it's what created such a beautiful world. And how can it not be? A domino effect that is positive and loving and generous, that is the way to make the world better. What else is there? What other way do we have?
SubhanAllah, what other way do we have? Aba Sadiq also referencing, by the way, this was an interesting kind of evolution, wasn't it? That in the beginning you are going through a process where you give, where you are wanting to become this channel of God's mercy and peace and love and generosity, and you are fighting against your ego. But then you do reach a stage, you do it enough, and you practice those divine attributes in the creation with God's creation. And then after a while you reach a stage, like Aba Sadiq said, he would be thinking of something.
Oh yes.
A sudden desire, and then it would manifest.
And you see it as trivial and silly, but the thing is, God is now very invested in making you happy, because He's so happy with you, with you making others happy, that you might say to yourself, oh, it's nothing, it's just a chocolate bar. It's like, it's just a passing whim in your mind. And then God says, no, it's not. I'm going to make sure you get it.
Yeah, and not just that, you're going to get tenfold what you gave, because I want you to know that your generosity in comparison to mine is a relative generosity. I will show you the meaning of absolute generosity.
God will trump you every time.
Right, which is again...
Don't we want Him to do that?
well, we can't compete, can we? It's impossible to compete with God in that regard. But it's another way of spiritually maturing and developing this kind of relationship and understanding of God. And I thought it was a beautiful kind of evolution that Aba Sadiq describes, that he's somebody who made this covenant and pact with God that I'm going to be generous with others, and try and fulfill the needs of other people anytime, if I'm in any situation. If I have the ability to do so, I will do it. And then eventually all of his needs are met. And then he reaches a stage where he is so dedicated and so committed to his covenant with God that then God starts to create that inner unveiling. where he shows little reflections of his generosity to his servant.
Exactly.
And reaching a point where, and we've all kind of, I guess, experienced it at certain points in our lives, but to have it on a consistent basis where you are working super hard and in the middle of the day you're like, I could really do with a big tasty donut.
Krispy Kreme donut.
And suddenly, that's the one. And suddenly somebody just like, hey, I was out and I just thought you might want this.
Just walk into the box like, hey, do you want
instant manifestation. But it is possible to reach that, and this is the...
Crazy things happen. The other day, so, I mean, I don't know if should we share personal stories?
Of course.
I mean, can we do that?
This is what
is that
this
weird?
makes the show such a...
It was so strange. I was just walking. MCR wants us to do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, they're all interested.
The other day.
What did you manifest, Talia?
I wasn't even expecting it. I was just thinking in my head, I really need to think about getting a new pair of shoes. And I had in my head the kind of shoes I would have liked to have. And I was like, that would be cool. Maybe I'll think about if I go shopping next, that's what I would want to get. And Sister Alex, she just walks right up to me. She's like, hey, I have these shoes. I'm not really going to use them. Do you want them? And they were exactly the kind that I'd had in my head. And I was like, and I looked at her and I was like, did I say it out loud to you? Like, did you know I was looking for shoes? She was like, no, I didn't know. And it was my size, and I was very happy that day.
Yeah, and what a beautiful way to live, right? Like these things suddenly manifesting as these synchronicities where you have this thing. And this is something that happens to people who are putting into practice the attributes of God and trying to emulate God as much as possible. And then God shows them, look, I can also be this way, and this is how you will know me, actually, is through practicing, through actually putting into action and not just being a passive vessel imagining things that they want. And this is where the law of attraction does come into play. Right?
That's when it's the real law of attraction.
Yeah, you got to first build that foundation. You got to first do some work, and then comes the law of attraction and God's beauty and generosity manifesting as little gifts that come your way from unexpected sources in these in this world that we live in. So very much. I guess if you've had a similar experience, share it with us.
We'd love to hear what other people are experiencing as well. And I do want to add something here, which is that we've talked about shoes and chocolate bars, we've talked about wealth, but there is something else that we do need from God quite often as human beings who err, and that is forgiveness. And this is something very, very critical that Abu Sadiq had taught us back in Egypt as well, which he still preaches and is an extremely important part of being a true believer. And that is that if you want God to forgive you, you have to be willing to forgive other people.
Yes.
A lot of times people have this red line in their minds. They have this kind of standard that they hold others to. And there's a difference between having a standard of self-respect and saying to yourself, I will not allow such and such to happen to myself. And having that human dignity, which is important, and everyone should have that. It's a requirement. But that's different from having a standard on other people where you say, if you don't reach my standard, I won't love you, I won't accept you, I won't embrace you as my brother or sister. If you put people on that kind of, put people to that standard and you hold them to that standard and you say, if you don't do that, then I won't accept you as who you are, then know that you're doing that to someone and you should be waiting for God to not do that to you. And that's a very frightening thing. And a lot of times people will say, how can I ever forgive that? Some sins you don't forgive, I have heard people say things like, there are some mistakes that should not be forgiven. And that's dangerous. See, that's where it becomes a dangerous game. When this law, if you know it and you realize it, and then you speak like that, then what you're saying is that now God can say to you, look, there are some sins you did that I just can't forgive. Or you're saying to God, I'm not going to let go of what they did. So God will say, okay, now next time you make a mistake, I'm not going to let go of what you did. Because that's just how it works. That's just the system. So when you become that person who says, I forgive everything, I have unconditional love, I accept you for who you are, I do not want you to have to change who you are to please me, I love you for as God has created you, then imagine what God will say to you in response. He will say, I love you as you are, I have unconditional love for you, and whatever you have done no longer worries me. I'm not holding it against you, because how can God hold against you a sin when you never hold against other people their sins towards you? It's impossible. So forgiveness is actually one of those things that are really top of the list that you should really consider giving when it comes to being a true believer, if you expect God to forgive you.
Yeah, and this is probably the highest kind of level of spiritual development, isn't it? Because
it's difficult. It's easy to give money and chocolate bars. It's not easy to forgive sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is why Abu Sadiq's speeches are so impactful, because he takes it from more the kind of mundane, everyday things that we think about and like, and then he takes you down this rabbit hole, this journey of advancing spiritually more and more. And like you rightly said, to forgive is not easy sometimes, when we all have certain things that are these soft spots where if somebody hits you, it hurts, and there is a reaction. But this is where you really, really have to put yourself in. If you're saying God is the merciful and the compassionate, and God is known through His mercy, and God is saying to the Prophet Muhammad on the night of Ascension that my mercy overrides my anger, and then who are we to hold grudges and things in our heart towards our brothers and sisters?
Exactly. And there is so much beauty in that, and you start to try and be like God. God is that shepherd, He's that protective figure. He is, as in the Christian world they say, father for God, right? And a good child tries to emulate a good father. So when you try and be like God, it creates this incredible bond. It creates this incredible connection where now you are so close to that entity that wants to bring you closer, because He wants to raise you, He wants to teach you to be more like Himself. So the more we do forgive and are generous and are understanding and we give unconditional love, the more He liberates us from those attachments. And He does that. We don't do that. We can't really control much as people, as human beings. We're very limited beings. But we can do so much through God, and He can enable us to not be those inner golems that we are, right? That tell us don't forgive, don't let go, hold that grudge, and hold it for years, and work by it, and think badly of that person who did that bad thing to you, and have that negative space in your heart forever, and just preserve it. This is something that is so toxic and so wrong, and leads to so many vices. But when you start to work with God and say, okay, let me help me be like you, teach me, raise me, then He will start taking away those terrible vices that can bring you down so badly. And again, the fact that it's all centering around the law of attraction and this secret that Abu Sadiq is discussing, and the fact that you can actually practically put it into application, you can see the fruit of it, that is something very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't put it better than myself.
Should we go to the last? I think we have one last segment to play off this lecture. Oh, we have two more.
Two more. Oh.
All right, let's go ahead and play it.
Let's go. Why are we waiting?
And so I find that this, although we gave the example with riches, I found that it was also true with other things, such as mercy. I found that throughout life, human beings need God to be merciful with them. And they need to have assurance, especially as they face trials and tribulations. They face the loss of loved ones, and they face the questions of, and the realization that they themselves are mortal human beings that one day will pass away. They become more and more in need of salvation, grace, forgiveness, mercy. And I found that if you took this concept and you applied it to these other things that you would need from God, that the result would be exactly the same. And so if I wanted that God forgive me for my shortcomings and my mistakes, then I have to also forgive everybody else for their shortcomings and their mistakes.
Okay.
And I found that this concept and this idea was validated actually in the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, thus validating and verifying even further the concept behind this secret. I found narrations that basically stated that there were individuals that forgave people for doing really bad things for them. And then they pass away and they stand before God in judgment. And God speaks to them and he asks them and holds them to account for their sins, and then he basically forgives or wipes off their slate clean due to the fact that these individuals had wiped off the debt of other individuals. And we find that there is a story pertaining to Jesus, actually, which contains the similar kind of meaning behind it, or the similar kind of substance, in which he talks about a rich man who had another man who he had loaned money to. And this individual that he had loaned money to, it was a parable from Jesus. This individual that the rich man had loaned money to also loaned afterwards money to other individuals. And then when it came time to pay the debt, the rich man who had initially loaned the second man, when the second man didn't have the ability to pay back the loan, the rich man who loaned him would forgive his debt. But the second man, when he would loan others, he would not forgive their debt. And so when the first man saw how selfish, how stingy the second man was, he decided that he was not going to forgive his loans at all anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he held them to account, and he repossessed all of his belongings, and he enslaved his wife and his children in the same way that he had done to the others. And in that is a kind of secret. It was Jesus's way of telling mankind that if you want to stand in front of the God who is in heavens up above and be free of all of your sins and all of your debt, that the secret to that is by also freeing the rest of God's creation from their debt towards you. If you forgave fully and completely, and were never angry of anyone, and never had anything in your heart, if you forgave all creatures for the wrongdoings that they did for you, it would be impossible for God to stand on the day of judgment and hold you to account for anything that you did, because that would essentially make you more forgiving than the Creator himself.
Wow.
And you have more of an ability and a greater heart that you forgave everybody, where God can't even forgive you. It would make you in more of a position that's deserving to be God than God himself. And obviously, a'udhu billah, that would never happen.
Wow. Wow. So this is the secret to obtaining God's mercy. This is the secret to, one of the secrets to salvation, essentially. That's incredible.
Exactly. And so for that reason, I began to go forward and decide that I would never go to sleep at night while I had anything in my heart, and that I would go through life totally forgiving every human being that had wronged me for anything, whether they be a believer or they be a non-believer. I would extend my forgiveness to all creatures, and I would leave this world. I became resolved that I would have the resolve that, and I became determined that I would leave this world having nothing in my heart towards anybody. And that I would recognize or make the excuse for, just as Jesus and the prophets and the messengers taught us, right? That make 70 excuses for your brother. I decided that I was going to make 70,000 excuses, not just for my brother, but also for my enemies. And I would see all creatures and all human beings and the whole world in general as there being no real bad guys. There's no such thing as a bad guy. There are just creatures that have different percentages of light within them. More are overcome by darkness, and thus they make dark decisions. They make wrong decisions because they're clouded, because they're foggy, because they can't even see their hands in front of them. And so they perceive things in a different way. They're not seeing things as they really are.
Okay.
They are perceiving good people as bad people. Why? Because they themselves are bad people.
Okay.
They themselves have done a lot of bad. They themselves are acting bad. But their nature and their essence is good, right?
Yeah.
Because they have even a small bit of light within them. And so I decided that I would see it in that way and forgive all creatures and do as was said in the Bible, that the one who said as he was hanging on the cross in his final moments, he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know," that we must, all of us, do the exact same thing and forgive all of mankind, not just the believers.
Okay.
And in doing so, I could be assured that without a shadow of a doubt, when I pass, that God would extend his forgiveness and his mercy to me, because I became a vessel of his mercy to creation. And so if he decided to do that, then great. And if he didn't decide to do that, then there was nothing wrong in his decision. He is God and everything that he does is right. But I would know that without a shadow of a doubt, God is more merciful than me. So I would know that it would be an impossibility that I not be engulfed by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Beautiful.
Yes, and mercy is the order of the day. It is so important to think about people that perhaps we could have been more lenient towards, make excuses for, trying to put ourselves in their shoes. And by the way, this is another great visualization thing that can happen, which is to imagine another person's life and the challenges they face on an ongoing basis. And this is something which is defined as empathy. But isn't empathy the same as compassion?
Yeah.
Compassion is just empathy with love.
Yeah, empathy is what? It's you're feeling how someone else feels. You're trying to put yourself in their shoes and walk in their shoes a little bit and realize how it is they feel. And I guess compassion is working by that information that you're trying to get from them, isn't it? Having that love, having that mercy.
Exactly, and this is something that, you know, walking in somebody's shoes is something that this was very beautifully demonstrated in the novel. I don't know if you've read it. It's To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
I'm very ashamed to say I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it has many different kind of themes in it, but this is really what really I remember very, very well from it, which is to really put yourself in somebody else's skin. And really, then can you really experience the challenges that they have, and then you can make excuses for them to then finally put that cherry on the cake, which is demonstrating mercy. And this is something that God knows. He knows that we go through a spiritual process. We're going to fall over and trip up sometimes. Therefore, mercy is that attribute that he faces creation with. Because when that mercy is not there, then there is judgment. And we hope that it is that mercy that faces us, because we are always growing. We are creatures on a journey to enlightenment. And until we get there, if it was not for the mercy of God facing us, then we wouldn't progress very far.
Yeah. It would be so tragic not to give another human being excuses, and then God doesn't give us those excuses when we direly need them. And everyone does need forgiveness and grace. Everyone needs that moment of being given a second chance, or being looked at in a forgiving way, in a way with grace, where God can say to you, for example, it's all right that you did this, or it's okay, I understand why. You need sometimes that kind of that note of understanding. And Imam Ali said that too. That's another narration. He says that there's nothing more painful for a good soul than to be misunderstood, or to not be understood by those around them.
Right.
So I guess it's all about, and I think that there's so much power in this episode. There's so much that a person can take from it.
Yes.
It's about creating the universe around us and making it a better place, and making it a better place for other people, because in doing so, we ourselves will have a peaceful life. We'll have a more wholesome life and experience on this planet. And also, what this episode kind of depicts is that you cannot know God, understand God, reach God, or be like God if you are not connected to other people. If we isolate ourselves and we're away from everything, and we don't go out there and look for human beings that need help and that need our protection, need our love, need our compassion, need our forgiveness, if we don't connect with the beehive, then we're missing out on being aware of God's attributes.
Yeah, so I mean, let's forgive each other and love one another and eat donuts together. I mean,
yeah, let's just do it and we'll get we'll have a nice life.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a simple formula, isn't it?
It's a very nice, beautiful, simple formula, beautiful secret. And there's one last segment left of the episode. We'll leave you on that note. Thank you very much for watching this morning. I hope you guys try the secret out and tell us how it goes for you. And I guess we'll see them tomorrow.
Yeah, no, we have to hear from you in the next episode. I think there's a lot of food for thought. And yeah, this is what we need to hear. We need to hear people's own personal experiences, like the beautiful story that you shared with the manifesting those shoes.
That was cool.
That's what it is.
All right, I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. And until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And then I want to take this moment actually with you, Tiffany, to address all the people out there that have ever done anything wrong to me in my life, from the day that I was born up until today and onwards into the future. I want to tell all those people that I love them. I want to tell all those people that I forgive them. I want to tell all those people that they're not my enemy. I want to tell all those people that I understand that the motives behind their actions were justified in their own brains. They thought that they were doing the right thing. And perhaps many of them still think that they are doing the right thing. And I believe that one day the prophecy which Imam Ahmad al-Hassan gave me will be fulfilled. And that prophecy is that I will leave this world having been killed. And when that day comes, I want people to know also that my forgiveness is also extended to the person who kills me. I don't want them, any of these people, to be judged in front of God for any action that they take against me. I forgive them fully. That does not mean that I am encouraging an individual to not defend themselves or defend their families. I think that defense is necessary and it's an obligation, just as Krishna taught Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. At some point, and sometimes, the ethical thing to do is to fight back in order that you deflect the arrows that are coming towards you. You have to defend yourselves. You have to defend your religion. You have an obligation to defend your family members. But you don't go on the offensive after that and totally demolish the enemy if salvation can be obtained, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is the position that we have. But we believe that Muhammad and the family of Muhammad and the prophets and the messengers, and we believe that the right thing to do is that even if in battle the enemy is destroyed or obliterated, that enemy that you destroyed and obliterated by necessity, that your forgiveness should be extended to them. And I'm going to give you now an example of the validity of what it is that I am saying and how God performs this ultimate act of forgiveness for creation. There are these narrations from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and one particular narration which is quite interesting, that says that on the day of judgment, that God's mercy will be rolled out to all of creation, and it would be so great that even the devil himself, even Iblis, will think that he will become engulfed by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So imagine the devil and all of the crimes and all of the sins that he had committed, and how many people he had destroyed, and how many murders he was responsible for, and how many evil acts he was responsible for. Think about how impure, how evil, how bad he had been.
Yeah.
Even him on the day of judgment will think that the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will engulf him. So what is it that he sees that causes him to come to this conclusion? He must really see a whole lot of really bad people that did bad things, people that were condemned to hell, entering into heaven as an act of mercy and grace from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, irrespective of their faith, right? Yeah. Or their positions in life, that he himself thinks that he's going to be saved. And I actually wrote in the Goal of the Wise how I had this dream one day, and I asked Imam Ahmed al-Hassan alayhi salam about it, and I had asked him some questions. And Imam Ahmed al-Hassan alayhi salam basically told me that what I saw in the dream was true, and that actually in the hereafter, even Satan himself is engulfed by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that the wrath of God upon Iblis is not everlasting. It's only up until a certain point. And that is the meaning of the verse in the Quran in which God says to Iblis, "And verily upon you is my curse until the day of recompense." And so we find here that God does not place Iblis under an everlasting curse, but rather he says that there's a curse upon you up until a particular point. Well, when you go back to the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and you see what is the meaning of this, when God says, وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكَ اللَّعْنَ إِلَى يَوْمِ الدِّينِ. What is Yawm al-Din? What is this day of religion, this day of recompense? What is this day? And you'll find that this day is the day of the Qiyamah, or the day of the Qiyam, or the day of the rise of the Qa'im, the judgment day which occurs on earth.
Okay.
And Imam Ahmed al-Hassan says that, yes, the punishment of Iblis is that he becomes dethroned, and he becomes humiliated, and he's killed at the hands and by the sword of the Qa'im. And that is when the curse is finally broken on Iblis. And after that, he obtains the mercy and the salvation from God Almighty.
That's a huge revelation. That's a huge revelation. And it just goes to show the incredible mercy of God. I mean, it's beyond our comprehension. Even the ultimate adversary, can obtain God's mercy and be enveloped by God's mercy. That's huge.
And that should tell us something about God's mercy. And that should tell us about our expectations of God, and how we see God, and how we have to break this despicable cycle of seeing God as some sort of evil monster that takes joy in punishing his children. We have to hold tight to this idea and this notion, this hadith from the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam that says that God is more merciful with his creatures than a mother is with her own children. There is no mother that I know that would take her children for behaving badly and throw them into a burning furnace or a burning oven. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
No, absolutely not. It just goes to show how I think people are reflecting their idea of God, which is this harsh judge, right? But actually, the true God is the merciful. So if we're able to be vessels of God's mercy with one another, like what a change we would see in the world.
Absolutely. And so God is just. He has to be just. He knows the hearts of mankind, and he knows the hearts of his creatures, and he must give back to each person that which he is owed. And people will face punishment. They will face humiliation. They will face judgment. But it is in the end of it all, is what I'm saying. In the end of it all, God's mercy will and shall overcome his wrath. And there's even a narration from Muhammad and the family of Muhammad that states that when the Prophet Muhammad went on his night journey and he met Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there was only between him and the Prophet this green veil. He hears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, verily, my mercy has overcome my wrath. And so we have to believe in that. We have to recognize that that is true. And we got to work together to put out the flames of hellfire and to correct the understanding of human beings. And we got to stop telling each other that you're a non-believer. And we got to stop hating one another. And we got to stop judging one another. And we got to learn to be, vessels of mercy. And it's by being vessels of mercy that we will obtain the ultimate mercy of God. But we got to give out mercy unconditionally. We got to help mankind unconditionally. We got to be walking, talking, breathing, living avatars of the divine characteristics and attributes and things that we hope to obtain from God. We have to be as we want God to be with us. If we manage to do that, then we will have implemented the secret and utilized it to its full extent. And I challenge everybody to test what it is that I'm saying and to come back to this video and write in the comments your experiences and share with people through videos the message behind this video, and share your experiences and teach other people how to be like God. And in doing so, we can change the world.
Thank you so much, Father.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Wow, what an incredible and beautiful episode. This is just such an important secret that we now know. I mean, the way that we are with others is the way that God is with us. So if we are kind to others, God will be kind to us. If we are generous to others, God will be generous to us. And if we are forgiving with others and merciful, then we will see God's mercy. But if we are not kind to others, then God will not be kind to us. If we are not forgiving with others, then God will not be merciful with us. Now, let's put this secret into action. Let's put it to the test, and let's change the world together.